Welcome to Novelist Spotlight. This is Mike Consol, your host. Two quick things before introducing you to my guest. First, I encourage you to subscribe to this podcast by clicking on the follow button and also clicking on the bell icon so you are alerted to each new edition of the program. Second, in addition to being the producer of this podcast and interviewing novelists, I am a novelist myself. I've written 4 books, 3 novels, and 1 short story collection. In the episode notes, you will find a short link to my Amazon page and all 4 of those titles. Now, on with our program. In the spotlight is Hank Quense. He has self-published his books over the course of 12 years. His fiction works include the Gundarland series, the Princess Moxie series, and the soon-to-be-published Zaftan series. His nonfiction books cover fiction writing, self-publishing, marketing, and the business of being a published author. Those titles include Creating Stories, How to Self-Publish and Market a Book, Self-Publish a Book in 10 Steps, Book Marketing Fundamentals, Business Basics for Authors, and Creating Your Own Novel. They sound like heavy subjects, but the truth is that Hank Quense is not a man without a sense of humor. He writes satirical fantasy and sci-fi. Early in his writing career, he was strongly influenced by 2 authors in particular. Douglas Adams, one of my favorites. Douglas Adams in his Hitchhikers Guide to the Galaxy and in the other books in that series. And Joseph Heller, author of the classic Catch-22. And with that, Hank Quense, welcome to Novelist Spotlight.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to have you. And you know what I neglected to say, and I'll say it right now. Hank's latest book is called The Author's AI Toolkit, From Concept to Publication. What a timely book this is, because there's a lot of writers who think they are in danger because of AI. Others think it's fatuous to think that a computer algorithm or a large language model can write like a human being with any kind of real creativity. They're probably wrong in both cases, but the fact is that AI, Chat GPT and Perplexity and Claude and Gemini, being a journalist, I use them every day. They're really valuable tools, not necessarily even for the writing, but the research that I do, but also for the writing. So we're going to learn a little bit more about what what his prescription is in terms of using AI, what that toolkit is. Hank, first of all, you decided to write this book. Tell us why you decided that writers needed to have such a toolkit and understand how to use AI properly.
Early last year, I was between big projects and I was getting kind of bored. So I decided to look into artificial intelligence and see what all the fuss was about. So I played around with it for quite a while until I got the hang of, really how to use it. And one day I asked it a very specific question. I said, what makes Ted Lasso a great character? And the response stunned me. It was so long, so detailed, and had so many insights into the character. There's all kinds of stuff that I never thought of before.
Oh, you fed this into ChatGPT or some other bot?
Perplexity AI.
Gotcha.
I have used ChatGPT, but I prefer Perplexity. So I was thinking about that was pretty good. So I asked it another question, and I took a 100-word storyline for one of my published novels. I gave it to the AI and said, write a plot for this story. And it did. And again, I was stunned because it came up with so many great plot points. It wasn't my story, but if I was to start writing this book from scratch, I would have taken 2 or 3 of those plot points and added them into the story. And about that time, I said, this stuff is really good. And I started talking to other authors, and half of them never heard of AI or had no idea what it did. The other half had some inkling of idea, and they were afraid of it. So I said, I got to write a book to tell these people how they think AI can really, really help them in their business of writing. So I did, and that was the genesis of the book. And I did a lot of research with the AI. I was always asking queries, and I think I got 40 AI queries in the book, that writers can take right out of the book and use for their own use. So it was good. I think it took me 6 months to write the whole book and get it published. You know,
Well, I think what's important for everybody to remember, because not everybody really understands these large language models, and I don't pretend to understand them in any kind of deep sense, but what they do is they take all the human writing that it can vacuum up from sources everywhere, including newspapers and magazines and so on. And they use all the writing that human beings have already done to help today's writers to do a better job of writing. So it's not that these are human, what they basically are doing is emulating human beings and feeding it to human beings, just like as we do research and research is put on various websites and other places, it vacuums that up. And if you say, what is the net worth of Warren Buffett? It's got that available to you. Not because it generated it, it's just feeding back to you what human beings have told it. So
yeah,
ditto for writing. And I can tell you that when I am working on a headline and I know I want envelope in the headline, I'll say, give me some headlines with the word envelope, and it spits out a bunch of headlines. And
yeah,
rarely do I use any one exact headline, but it gives me a phrase or a turn of phrase that I think that's something that's really usable. That's something I can use. And it also works in terms of, well, it works in a lot of ways, including with the on the back end when I'm looking for a meta description of a story, and then give me 6 keywords. It just spits that stuff out a lot faster than I can, makes me more efficient and
yeah.
productive, and that's a beautiful thing. So now, have you yet written a book that is? Let's take this book. Did AI participate in the writing of this book?
Yes and no. It Probably about 40% of the book is taken from AI queries that I wrote. I'll add a query, like say, what makes a great character? And I'll take the response and the query and I'll put it into the book so that writers, the people who read the book can understand how to write a query and what the query is going to throw out at them. And I use that as examples of the AI. I don't talk much about theory. I don't even mention LLM at all. So, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in how practical applications of AI can be used. I don't want to know about the theory. I just want to know how other writers can use this stuff without going into all the theory and all the deep stuff. So I have queries like, if you get this idea, how do you write? Tell me how to brainstorm it. And I do. I tell the writers who are the readers of the book, this is how you would ask the AI to brainstorm an idea. And I give them an example and I give them the response. And all the AI stuff in the book is written in italics. And everything that I wrote is written in non-italics, so that people understand what I wrote and what I didn't write. That seemed to work pretty well.
I think it was a Washington Post, and they're by no means the only one that has said, try to guess which of these paragraphs was written by a human being and which one was written by artificial intelligence. And now this was probably more than a year ago when I looked at it, and I was able to tell easily enough that, okay, this is AI and the other one's a human being, mainly because there was just something a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? It's a little, go ahead.
Unemotional,
What'd you say, Hank? What's the phrase or word?
unemotional.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way of putting it. It is unemotional, and you can tell that. But
Yeah.
that's changing. It's getting better over
Yes,
time.
it
And
is.
that's what's marvelous about it is that we are these things just busted out, and they say the super intelligent AI chatbots are. They said originally the early stuff was the mentality of a junior high school kid, uh,
Yeah.
and now I think maybe a high school kid. Now they're saying we're rapidly moving towards PhD intelligence and eventually super intelligence where it can outperform any human being when it comes to um, not necessarily writing, because that does require emotion, but in terms of being able to produce intelligence in the form of data and so on.
Yeah.
By the way, let me just read off to you the table of contents of Hank's book. It has several sections, of course. It starts off with getting started with AI, using AI. Then phase one is planning. Phase two is writing. Phase three is publishing. Phase four, marketing. Phase five, author business. And then it has a master query list and, of course, about the author on the dust sleeve. Now, what this indicates to me, Hank, is that you're also talking about the facility of using AI for to market your book, to get it published and to market it.
Yes, very good at that. That's
So,
act- that's very good. If you're self-publishing a book, one of the things you got to do is come up with keywords. You put it up on Kindle. Kindle says, "Give me 7 keywords." And most authors, self-publishing authors, especially if they're doing it the first time, guess at what the keywords would be. Now, if you type in 100-word storyline for your book and you tell AI, "Give me the keywords for this thing," it comes up with a fantastic list of keywords that is much, much better than what you've been guessing at. It will also do a great job of coming up with the book categories you should use. Another area that self-publishers often guess at. So it does do this fantastic job on this thing. And those two things, they're partially self-publishing and they're partially marketing. But it will also, if you tell it that I'm going to launch my book on July 4th, give me a marketing plan that starts a month before. And it will do that. It will give you a marketing plan, say on week 1, do this, on week 2, do that, completely, a very good marketing plan. And unless you're a marketing expert, this is really going to help you market your book. The other thing it does a very good job at is you tell it something about the book, maybe 100-word storyline, and say, write 5 Facebook posts for this. And it will. And it will write better posts than I would ever write. So you just copy and paste them and put them in a Facebook, and it's fantastic like this. It really is good marketing. Actually, it's good for everything, and it has to do with writing and publishing a book.
I think the important thing for everybody out there to remember is whatever it produces, you can always edit. I mean, if it comes up, if it spits out, it's going to, as Hank says, it's going to spit out those keywords a lot faster than you're going to come up with them, and likely is going to do a better job of it. But then, if you see a keyword that you think, well, I don't, I don't agree with that one, and it skipped over another word that I thought should be
Yeah.
included, then you just modify it, and but you're still saving a tremendous amount of time, and you're putting a very powerful engine or algorithm to work for you.
Mhm.
Now, you're fairly new. You had some time on your hands, Hank, and you decide, let me check into this AI. You've researched it now. You've written a book about it. By the way, listeners, the book is available on Amazon along with Hank's other books. And you now knowing what you know now, um, on your next book project, it sounds like AI, Perplexity, in your case, Perplexity.ai will be a companion writer.
It will be my writing buddy or my writing assistant. I treat everything that comes out of the AI as a first draft. And if I'm going to use it, I have to modify it because it doesn't come out in my voice. It doesn't sound like me. So I modify all of them I treat it as a first draft. And I go in and I change some words, I might rewrite a sentence or two, and then I just won't accept it the way it is.
Well, that is a great point. And that is that, a lot of authors spend their lifetime trying to find their voice, trying to find their sound.
Yeah.
And that's not something that the AI will do for you. For instance, one of Hank's favorite authors and mine, Douglas Adams, he's so flamboyant, he's so colorful, he's so fun. That's not something that an AI bot is going to spit out. But it doesn't mean it can't
Oh,
be helpful. But I mean,
yeah.
well, go ahead, Hank. Take off on that.
Okay. Well, this is a real world example. If you're writing a scene and your character gets in trouble in the scene and you suddenly have brain freeze, you can't figure a way to get this guy out of this trouble. You feed that into the AI and tell me, you put the scene in there, you give it some background, you say, how do I get this guy out of this problem? Give me 5 ways to get out of here. And the AI will give you 5 solutions to the problem. Some may be silly, but it's a solution, and you just get to pick the one that you think is really good and continue writing the scene. This
Yeah.
is an awesome experience. You
So
know,
I
but
say a companion writer for you, but then also he is a business assistant, a marketing assistant. You can participate really in all parts of the book's creation, and then
yeah,
its publishing, and then its marketing, and including through, as you were saying, through social media. Go ahead and give me some postings for Facebook or for Instagram for this, and
yeah,
it does a fine job of that.
that's true. Yes, it does. I use it quite frequently to brainstorm with myself. I don't know about you, but I get all sorts of crazy ideas. They just pop up, and I think one of them is good. I'll feed it into AI, and tell me flush this thing out, and expand it. What can I do with it? And it will do a great job on that. It'll come up with a lot of different things to do, which I won't want to do, but it will come up with something that I probably will use. Maybe give me 10 ideas. The brainstorm will come up with 10 new ideas. I may use one. I may not use any. I may use two that I think are worthwhile pursuing, but the others are kind of weird, and not what I want to do.
Talk about you like comedic writing. You like to write in a comedic fashion.
Yeah.
Tell me why. Is that just natural to you? Does it feel good to do it that way, or is there any kind of strategy to it?
Um, yeah, there is. If you want to write a comedian, a comedy, a character that's funny, you can't write a book that's kind of serious, and then after you finish the first draft, say, I think I'll make this into a comedy. Doesn't work that way. You got to start out when you start day one, starting on a novel, you say, this will be a comedy book. And you have to develop characters that have comedy built into them. Usually this is I guess, a characteristic that is unnatural or that most people won't have. It's completely bizarre. Like something happens, an event happens, and everybody runs away except your character because of some reason he wants to stick around. It's in all sorts of danger, but he's going to stick around and examine this because that's his comic flaw. So it works. You got to work at it. It just doesn't come by accident. Telling a few jokes isn't really what makes it happen.
And not only that, but I often tell people that it's not about punchlines. It's not about being overtly funny. The best kind of comedy is it's just embedded within the writing. And even if somebody has a different sense of humor and doesn't find it funny, it's
Yeah,
not falling flat because it's actually part and parcel of the information or the scene
yeah,
development that you're
yeah.
working on. So it works on multiple levels.
It
Uh,
does.
yeah, do
Most
you
of
want to do punchline writing? I mean, there's a time and a place for that, but if you want
yeah,
people, I mean, everybody's got a different sense of humor. So if you're trying to just appeal to them in a very overt way, there's going to be hits and misses, and those misses are the things that could convince them that, maybe I don't have time for this book. This guy's not so funny after all. So you
yeah,
have to be careful about that. But there's something else you said, Hank, that about you need to go into it with the idea in mind that I'm writing something that's comedic. And when I have somebody who isn't naturally or professionally a writer, somebody in the investment community writing for the magazine, they want to write a piece. I tell them, write it very conversational, write it. And I said, don't be afraid to be colloquial and very conversational because it's much easier to scale back. You can formalize conversational writing. It's much easier to take conversational writing and turn it a little bit more formal than it is to take formal writing and then make it conversational. And I think the same is true with comedic writing. If you've written something and I got the plot and everything, it's not wasn't intended to be funny while I was writing it. Now I'm going to make it funny. That's a hard hill to climb.
yeah. That's probably impossible. What you got to do is you got to come up with this comic that has a built-in flaw. And then the purpose of the plot is to get this guy into some situations where his flaw takes over. Think of uh, Peter Sellers. That's always how he happened. He's like got this detective thing, uh, and then, he's the plot is always getting him into positions where his floor takes over and everybody else is doing different things and he's only by himself. Drives his boss crazy, but he always ends up getting the case solved by accident. But it's Peter Sellers and Inspector Clouseau. That's my ideal comic.
There you go.
That's my ideal character. I have a
Classic.
great character. I got what can I do? What would Clouseau do in this situation?
Right, right. Classic. So when did you start writing, Hank? I mean, how old were you when you decided, hey, I like this. This is what I'm going to not necessarily do for a living, but you just decide I'm going to start writing and see where this goes.
Uh, that was in the last century. Actually, I decided I was going to be a writer on my 50th birthday.
On your 50th. Okay, so you came to it fairly late. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
oftentimes people know in their
I
teens.
was a sales manager for a big corporation. I had an office in Manhattan, and I decided it was only a matter of time till they tapped me on the shoulder and told me to take a hike. And I said, I'm not going to do the same stuff after a second career. I did a different second career, and I decided I wanted to be a writer, which writing was always something I was pretty good at. I had never written fiction, but I did a lot of writing, so I decided I was going to be a writer. And I had to take a bus into Manhattan every day. So I started writing scenes on a bus, even though I had no idea what the hell fiction was about. I plunged right ahead. Didn't stop me at all that I didn't know anything. That's because I didn't know anything. But I kept going. I found a critiquing group, an online critiquing group that I'd send them a story and people would just tear it apart. And I said, oh, now I know what they're talking about. That's how I learned to write with the critique group, a good critique group that wasn't afraid to really, really tear your story apart.
Oh yeah, you're in the New York area. Northeasterners are very, I grew up in the Northeast and upstate New York. We're much more blunt than people in the other parts of the country. We're very straightforward with the criticism. When we tell a joke to somebody, it's often at their expense. That
Yeah,
doesn't fly out west. I learned that when came out west. I started realizing, oh, these people don't, you make a joke at the expense of yourself or something else, but not at the expense of another person because they react to it like, whoa. It's like,
yeah,
what's going on here? It's like it doesn't take long before you realize, okay, they're a different part of the country, a different way of
yeah,
uh,
true.
busting chops. Bust
Yeah,
your own chops, not the other guy's chops. Uh,
yeah.
so get in this writing group. You got these blunt New Yorkers or New York area or
Well,
New.
actually, this was an international group. It was online.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow. Well, being online, because I also think that, and this is what you see with social media, where people just take strips out of one another. I think because there's that distance there, they feel that they can get away with stuff.
yeah. It's
Um,
safe.
it's safe. You're not going to get up and punch them in the nose.
That's right. Yeah,
It's virtual, and they might even be certainly with social media because they don't attach a real name to it. It's really pretty ugly what people will do on social media
yeah,
when they it's just an angry place in a lot, of cases, a great place in a lot of cases too, but an angry place too.
yeah,
When I post, I leave the comments off because I don't need trollers, number one. And even if somebody's wants to engage me in conversation, I just don't have the time. So I
yeah,
just don't turn it on. So it's not just to stay away from the people who would want to, be critical of me for who knows what reason,
yeah,
but also just, hey, I don't have time for the back and forth. So it's best if you like what I'm doing, then take a look at it. But I don't have time to chit chat.
yeah. See, but now the difference between social media and the critique group is supposed to tear the story apart. That's their job. Social media
Exactly.
people are doing that just to be annoying or, they got a problem.
Well, and the idea is constructive criticism.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the
And,
idea is,
and then,
I think you could make this character more believable if,
yeah,
or this
they
scene
tear
would
my
come
story
up.
apart, and the first thing I do when I saw it is I write them back and say, thank you.
Yep. Yeah. 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 So you start writing and you, this is a question I often ask people on the program. What about writing? I mean, what does writing do for you? What does it do for you? What do you, just from an emotional or psychic standpoint, what does it do for you?
I like it. I like to do it. I actually love to write. Writing I don't know, it just comes natural to me. And once I got the hang of writing fiction from this critiquing group, I started to sell short stories.
It's a good feel.
Yeah,
Write something. Yeah, I relate completely. I know what you mean. It's not easy. It's a tough thing to do
it
because
is.
writing
Yeah,
is there's so many decisions to be made with every sentence. There's so many moving pieces, and
yeah,
it
it's
can
it.
frustrate you.
So many moving parts, and they all got to mesh together. If one of them doesn't fit in right, the story's a failure. You got plots, you got settings, you got scenes, you got all of this stuff. It all has to blend together. It all has to mesh to
Now
have a successful story.
you write both fiction and nonfiction, as I said at the top.
Yeah.
So, um, why do you just enjoy writing both, or is there a reason? I mean, some people say, I write fiction, but that doesn't really make money. But a nonfiction book, a self-help book, can make money.
I, uh, I had an evolution. I started writing short stories, and I ended up selling about 45 short stories. And I prided myself that my short stories were always less than 6,000 words, that they were, in other words, they were short. So one day I wrote a story and it ended up being about 14,000 words. And wasn't sure how that happened, but I started another story and this one ended up being about 20,000 words.
Mhm.
And I realized I was getting experience. My characters were getting more complex. My plots were becoming more complex, and this required me to write more words. So I shrugged and decided, okay, well, I guess I write novellas and novels from right now. And that's what I did. I started writing novels. I guess I have about 12 or something on Amazon. And I just lost the fiction. It didn't amuse me anymore, or it didn't entertain me the way it used to. So I started writing. I had a lot of experience, in writing and self-publishing and stuff. And well, I didn't have self-publishing yet. I was writing. So I started writing nonfiction books about writing fiction because I belonged to a write group in North Jersey, and I knew that a lot of people in there were very baffled by the idea of how to create a story. So I wrote a book. I told them how to write a story. And
Yep.
later on, I self-published that book and I started getting into it and I started writing other books to help people. I mean, I knew how to self-publish a book, so I wrote a book on how to do that. And I wrote a book on marketing. That's what I do now. I write nonfiction. I don't think I could write another short story or a novel. I just, I have completely outlined two novels. They'd be very good stories. I sit down and write them and I go, I don't want to do this. I want to do something else. I just
Wow. So you
I
just
just
kind of
lost the
exhausted.
conviction.
Yep. But you still enjoy the writing nonfiction.
Yes. Well, it's writing. I like writing.
So, what is your next project? What are you working on now?
I actually don't have a project right now. I've had this, well, I do have a project that's a little bizarre. I've had this idea on book marketing for several years that the way to sell books is to build an author cooperative. We get a bunch of authors working together to sell it, to market each other's books and to help out. And I've finally started doing that. I've, uh, I'm starting to anyway. I got a small group of people that were working together and working out ways that we could help market each other's books. That's my current project.
So, how does that work? I mean, give us a little bit of the mechanics.
Okay, well, we've been in existence for several months now, and our main activity is once a month we give a webinar and we talk about a specific problem on about writing. My AI book, when I was writing the AI book, I also made three lectures out of it, slideshows, one for writing, one for publishing, and one for marketing. And I gave those on these webinars once a month. The next webinar is the end of this week is by the end of next week is um, how to waste money on social media marketing.
How to waste it? Yeah.
Yes, very easy to do,
Oh,
extremely easy to do. So I'm going to talk about that and how people have got to stop using social media marketing because social media will not target your audience. They just blast out to the general population. And if that's what you're doing, you're just wasting your money because you write a genre, it's less than 10% of the general population is interested in your book. So sending a post out to 100% of the general population is a waste of money. So,
Yeah, well, you can target
social
it.
media sites love it. They love self-published authors.
But the social media sites also are profess to be able to target. In other words, they know, hey, we know people are science fiction fans, and we'll put it in front of them. Uh, do you feel that that they're selling um, a bunch of goods?
Yeah, they are because they rarely target very closely. I think the last time I tried to use a Facebook ad, the closest I could come to was novel. That was the only word they'd let me use to hype the book. That's pretty useless. Oh,
Talk-
I never published that ad. I said, screw that. I'm not wasting money on this. I was trying to get it down to, to something like sci-fi or fantasy, but wouldn't let me do that. Just said novel. That was the closest I could get to on the ad, to target the ad.
Talk about your how you work, Hank. What's your writing regimen? Are you a guy gets up in the morning and you put in 2 or 3 hours? Are you an evening writer? Is it catch as catch can?
No, it's mornings. I'm at my most creative in the morning. I'm dull in the afternoon. So I start writing usually around 6:30, and it goes on to about 10:30 or 11 o'clock usually. Writing isn't really descriptive because I have all these books out there. You spend a lot of time it's on your author business, not on, specifically writing anything. So it's mostly author business I work on right now because I don't have a book project going on. But as I work in the morning. Sometimes I'll put another hour or so into in the afternoon or the evening if I get an idea that I want to work on and flesh out. But I'm a morning person.
Now, you don't have a current project. Are you looking for one? Are you actively researching? Are you waiting for an epiphany?
Nope, waiting for an idea.
And it will generally present itself to you. Is that usually how you work?
Yeah, yeah, I'll get an idea about what if. I play what if with myself a lot. What if I did this or what if I looked into that? And then I get on my AI and start asking it questions about what ifs and what would I do with this idea? And it may turn out that I get an idea for a book. Well, I'll start working on it.
Now, you have mentioned Douglas Adams. I mean, that's right in your bio, Douglas Adams and
Yeah.
Joseph Heller. Who are some of the other authors that you like?
Um, Vernon Cornwell, I love him. I think I've read every one of his books twice, or two or three times. He's an English writer. He writes historical fiction, but it's always involved with a war or battles. And the main character is always a soldier. He's an excellent writer. I don't know why, he's one of these writers. I get one of his books, the one that I haven't read, and within 3 or 4 pages, I'm hooked. I can't put the damn thing down. And others, it may take me 25, 30 pages before I get decided I'm going to keep reading it. But I like uh, Joseph Helpern also. His new book, the what is it? The Ocean and the Stars. It's an excellent book. Come
And
out
that's
about a year or two
helpful.
ago. I read it twice.
Gotcha, gotcha. Um, so, do you have an all-time favorite novel?
Um, no, I don't think so.
No, there's a lot. I mean, that's a really hard one because there's just so many,
Yeah,
great.
I know. I'm generally reading 3 books at a time. Two,
And
two fiction and one nonfiction.
and why is that? It sounds like a collage. I mean, that works best for you if you're reading a collage.
Yeah, I don't know. I just love to read and I'm a speed reader. Um, So, and I really don't like audiobooks. So I just like to read. I'd
Yeah.
rather read than watch TV. I actually don't have a TV service right now.
Yeah, not everybody, as popular as streaming channels are and
Yeah,
whatnot. There are still a lot of people out there who don't see that as a good use of time. They'd rather, I mean, the difference is when you're reading, your imagination is being activated,
that's
not so
right.
much
Yeah,
when you're watching. I've said it before that the director makes all the decisions for you, creates all the characters, fully
that-
fleshes them out. You don't really participate in it other than just staring at it.
that's right. Yeah, if you're reading, you got to take the author's words and build mental images in your mind, about what's going on.
Yeah, yeah.
But August, I will get a TV service in August. That's when football starts, and I can watch the Giants.
Oh, there you go.
Then
I
I'll
hope better
cancel
than
it.
last season. They were horrible last season.
Then I cancel it after the Super Bowl.
I get it. I get it. Better than sitting at a bar watching the game at a sports bar, right? And having to do all that drinking and eating while you're watching.
Yeah, you can't hear the announcer with all the noise.
Exactly. That's a problem too. So,
Yeah,
how long does it generally take you? I don't know if you've been in the situation you're in right now, where you're waiting and just being observant and waiting for something to present itself, and it's like, oh, that's a good idea. I'll do that. Uh,
yeah.
you've been in that position before, maybe, and how long is there? Do you have any sense for how long it usually takes for the incubation process to bear an offspring?
No, whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. Okay, well. Good luck with this new book, Hank. It sounds really interesting. I have not heard of one like it. Not to say there isn't one like it, but I haven't heard of one like it. AI is so new on the scene. And it's really a timely subject. And I think that, you've brought some things up in our conversation that I wholeheartedly agree with. I mean, my experience has been the same. You've gone deeper than I have, though, on the fiction writing part of it, but
Yeah,
I use it for journalism, and it works really well for that. I have no doubt it works well for fiction writing as well, or nonfiction book writing. So
it's great for articles too. To help me with write articles. I do a lot of that. Put them on my blogs, but it helps there too. I want to write an article on subject X. Give me some ideas. That's the trigger to the article. Get me started on writing the article. AI
yeah.
gave it to me first. What I love about AI is it's always coming up with ideas or points I never would have thought of on my own.
Oh, that's interesting. Yep. Well, there you go. And a lot of times, let's say it's evening. You're a morning person. It's
Yeah.
evening. You're dabbling with something. The perplexity doesn't ever get tired. It will
Nope.
give you some inspiration at times when you're maybe a little too fatigued to have inspiration. So it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah, I'll
great to
do it
have.
at night. Yeah, I'll do it at night or in the evening, ask it some questions just to see what happens more than anything else. I'm not really interested in the subject, but I am interested in what it will tell me. It may come up with some ideas that I want to work on.
I think in perusing through your stuff, Hank, I believe you also have done some flash fiction writing. Is that right?
Um, no, I did one flash fiction.
Oh,
This is
okay, just one. That's
really
not
hard
that's
to
not your
write.
normal.
God, that is terrible to write flash fiction. It's
It's
so,
it's too
there's
it's
just
just too
so much
short.
editing, boil it down, less than 1,000 words. That is tough.
Yeah, it can be. It can be, but it's in some ways it's so condensed that I think
Yeah,
a lot of people like that sense of accomplishment that I got it done. It's quick, it's short. It just seems that today people have such short attention spans because of partially because of social media.
yeah,
Everything's a quick hit.
yeah.
So it's all interesting. So listeners, the URL to Hank's website, which has all his material, is in the episode notes. Avail yourself of that. You'll learn more about Hank and take a look at his books and have an opportunity to buy them from there. It's also on Amazon and I think probably all the major book selling sites.
It is.
So,
Yeah.
Hanks, I appreciate you coming on the program, taking the time. I wish you best of luck. You
Thank you.
and Perplexity, the best of luck with your new book.
Okay. Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me. This was fun. I enjoyed it.